happy to be here, and especially happy to be in physical presence here. I think it's after this long 3 years COVID, it's I think my first talk on stage since more or less 3 years, and it's really good to see in faces, to really see the eyes and see people really giving some reactions back or just throwing glasses away. All right. Thanks for this great introduction. I think this video I will take with me home. I can run it then afterwards, always. You may have heard about Siemens all way along. I think everybody knows us, hopefully, with trains, traffic control, maybe smart infrastructure in buildings, whatever, medical products. But what you most likely don't know is that we are one of the largest software companies in the world nowadays. I think after Microsoft and SAP, Siemens is now number 3 with regard to industry software. So not consumer products, but industry. And I'm part of one of those brands, which is mainly talking about lifecycle collaboration, which is really the product lifecycle as well as the application lifecycle, which is then the software. And today, I'm trying to talk a bit about keeping smart products safe and secure. So most likely everybody have heard about this blackmailing that companies are seeing, that their data, their computers are locked. Why? Nobody really have thought about something like that. Which means why nobody really, from the bad guys, I mean not from you, from the bad guys, has really thought about with the smart key locks, we can lock out people from their homes. And only if they pay us a certain amount of money, we let them in again. Luckily, the industry has built in some security mechanism by a secondary key, so you can always go in, even if your mobile device or your NFC device doesn't work. But it's a kind of scaring situation. And I think it's even more scaring if you think about, has this glass been there yesterday as well? Somebody threw out something from the desk? So by locking out people from the home, you may also have the situation that people just enter your home, leave the home, and this without a trace. So one of the things is with the smart key locks, are you sure that this device is really as secure as you believe it is? Are you really sure that nobody else is sitting in your home doing some fancy things, observing you during night, whatever, and you have no trace? Luckily, this is just maybe start of a new novel, I don't know, so you can take it. But what is true really is this one. It's a fault or bug which is called acropalypse. I think it's a difficult word for me, acropalypse, I really trained it hard. And this was being made public earlier this year, I think, by the Google guys, by Android developers. And acropalypse does something really, really bad. You are taking pictures, and I see a lot of people taking pictures, and you may want to blur sensitive data, so the face or some privacy data, whatever. Or you are cropping a picture that you cut out things which are not meant to be shown for somebody else. Acropalypse can revert this. So if you have this bug, and this bug is, by the way, on Android phones, or was on Android phones, in the photo app. So if you have this bug, you can, and I see already people typing now, really urgency. If you really have this bug, then you can take out the cropped, the blurred things, and you go back to the original ones, so really unhiding the things you want to hide. It's a bit scary, isn't it? What does it mean, what I so far told you? It really means we have to be in a situation that our products must become as secure as possible. We really need to do something about it. And it's not only about software, but mainly about software, because the hardware, the electronic devices are well regulated since a couple of years with the functional safety stuff. But cybersecurity software is a growing stuff, is really something which comes more and more. That means there is not 100% safety, security, and whatever possible. But we must be sure that we do as much as possible. And at the same time, I personally, but also you don't want to have your privacy data somewhere public in the internet. Nobody needs to know that I went with my car today, maybe too fast, to Amsterdam. Nobody from the insurance company, for example, does not need to know where am I driving and how am I driving. Just as an example, as a, let's say, rather less severe thing. Health is definitely, at least in Germany, it's the topic of these days. Electronic health cards, which we are getting during the year, which means if I put my privacy, so my utmost private data in an electronic device, I do not want to know who else is reading this. Actually, I want to know who is reading this. So what can we do? I think from a Siemens point of view, what I'm trying to consult our clients, not only in the regulated environment, but the majority is there, it's really that you have this kind of process. And Laurie was talking about the classical V model with the classical waterfall, which is still pretty common in the industry. So if you have on the left wing the requirement section, on the right wing the verification, the validation, and somewhere you drive this by design. The important thing here is you have a released product. You have a deliverable, something you hand over to the next phase during your product development or hand over directly to your customers, to your end users. But let's look here more on an, let's say, more modern way of working. I think even if the Scrum Alliance guys or Agile Alliance guys says, oh, it's not modern anymore. We have it since 15, 20 years. But it's more iterative. It's really something which is in typical software development. I think it's state of the art nowadays. Really iteratively develop things, fail fast with one of the keywords, do it in a Scrum, Kanban, or whatever kind of agile way. Again, you have at the end of your iteration, at the end of your development, you have a released system, which might be the final product or just a component of your products. And that is the thing you should keep in mind when I continue talking now. What you also see, especially in regulated environments, is that we have a lot of functional safety activities. Activities to really analyze the hazards which may arise towards human beings, the hazardous events and the mitigations. And the same is coming up now also for cybersecurity, where we talk about threats, where we talk about attack paths and all these kind of things which are really to harm the software, which again then may harm due to its malfunctional thing or behavior, the human beings. So somehow safety, cybersecurity are so strict together that we can't really divide. But what we also see is that very, very often in the industry, we have specialized tools, specialized people, experts sitting in their ivory tower, working with their data, with their stuff, and at the end of the day, throw the report, throw the requirements out in order to be, let's say, handed over into the development, which may, due to its agility, already 3 iterations away. And why, or what we are doing now from a Siemens point of view, we are breaking the silo. We are really trying to bring the things together to tear down the borders, that data, that information can flow back and forth between the two, let's say, activities. And why do we do this? And what is the really benefit? I believe that really, or not only me, but also my colleagues, we believe that risk mitigation must influence immediately the requirement setting, or vice versa. Change requirements can immediately influence a reanalysis of a HARA, which is the hazard and risk analysis, or TARA, which is the threat and risk analysis, so that you really constantly interact between the two entities. And the same goes, of course, testing results. If you find something during testing, it might play back in a different risk mitigation. It might be playing back directly towards something completely, let's say, reanalyzing on the risk side. And how do we do it? I think Laurie, you also said about single source of truth. That's really our mantra as well. We believe that if you put all data transparently into a database and deliver the reports, the, let's say, results, information to everybody who needs it, everybody can read exactly the data as he or she needs it, can take decisions, and that in real time. And that's what we do with our solution. But we wanted more. We wanted really not only to look at the risk side, on the early side, on the requirement portion. We also wanted to include the, let's say, quality portion, the quality assurance. Really bring this as early in the development, especially when we talk about agility, about Scrum, as possible. To really feedback the architectural information. Are we doing the right things? And have really a risk-based, let's say, decision points that we are going on the right way and not wait until we release it, but already have this during our development. And why do we do this? Really to also influence as early as possible the architecture, the development, the testing, which is then maybe even influencing again the requirement setting. And what we did then from a Siemens point of view, we were looking around. And by accident, I don't know, somebody found then this nice company, where am I here? SIG, Software Improvement Group, which always had the same ambition, which is really thinking the same way. And that means Sigrid from SIG is exactly doing what we wanted. And that's the reason why we partnered with them. I think the partnership exists since early this year, and now finally we can tell that this is everything we have also from a legal point of view in place. So really we are teaming up and working together. So we have this vision of bringing the quality aspects as early in the development, put it into a development context as possible in order to improve the quality really. And how does it work? For those of you who have not seen so much about Sigrid, I included one screenshot because it really fits well into our thinking about how we believe and how we live up the single source of truth. It's really, again, one database where every role can visualize the data as this role needs it. So we have really a magnitude of different reports, of different graphics, which you can read, which you can use to digest, to take decisions, and so on and so forth. Let me come back to Acropolis. I think one important thing which I left out, and maybe you have spotted this already, but it's really tiny, I have to say, are two things. It has been introduced already 5 years ago. So this fault exists since 2018. It was, or it became public this year, but it exists already since 2018. And the second, not so obvious, but scaring thing is, it's the same fault existing in Windows 11. Android, Microsoft. Who of you thought that they are somehow belonging together? I guess nobody, right? So there must be somehow one source of a packet about open source maybe, which is really holding this fault. I think Google did not really disclose where the root cause of this fault is, but most likely there was some relation. So what we believe then is, and you see here bold marked this open source health, and it's also one thing which we heard already earlier. This is one of the crucial things. And what is even more crucial is we cannot rely on whatever we do must be done with regard to requirement analysis, with regard to risk mitigation, and so on and so forth, testing quality during the development. It must be done, let me just stop one thing more, throughout the whole life cycle. The US government has released a couple of years back the executive order, which is looking into the critical infrastructure software, which is really looking into give me my data with regard to what kind of data do I have in it. If we go a step further, critical infrastructure for me means also my keylock, because that is something which is critical for me. It's not only that the water supply in America works, also my keylock must work, my electronic health must work. The EU is following now with the Cyber Resilience Act, which is coming sooner or later. We all know how long this regulation works. But important is, whatever we do, it must be done with regard to risk-based, with open source vulnerability management after we release our product, and it must stay there with the quality assurance until end of life of this product. And do this really as early as possible. And again, same thinking, single source of truth, where we really have this in one database, in one data. We get the data from Sigrid. We incorporate this in order to really figure out, is this vulnerability, which we just have found from a vulnerability database, which may have a scoring of 9 or even 10, we would panic. But with the data we have already from our risk analysis, from our TARA I mentioned before, we can say the attack path is very unlikely to happen. So we can say, yes, we relax because we know it's not going to happen that this vulnerability is being carried out. We can fix it easily the next time because we have an evidence that it is not going to happen, not going to be public or whatever very easily. And that is exactly why I believe that teaming up Polarion from our side, from Siemens, as well as the cigarette solution from SIG is one of the best solutions we see at the moment, at least, to really make the product, as I said, safe, secure, and that I can sleep in the night really safely, not being afraid that somebody is entering the room, doing something fancy, leaving it again, and I have no trace, but just feel something was weird tonight. With that, I'm done. You can, of course, reach out to me. I'm still here around, even though I'm also going for vacation. So not only our Spanish, Brazilian keynote speaker, so it's also my last day before I leave for vacation. So you can always reach out to me, either via this or via the secret guys. I think they know how to find me. And if you are coming to Germany by accident, you are more than welcome to visit me. With that, I think we have time, hopefully, for questions.
Questions, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation and your pitch, of course, to make sure that software is secure from the get-go.
And everybody is reconstructing the home to...
Exactly, their door locks, yes. Do we have questions from the audience? Please raise your hand. Then we'll bring you a microphone. And meanwhile, I'm checking online. Because otherwise, I have a question. Well, it's actually not my own question. It's a question from a Dutch journalist who approached me last week from AG Connect. And it was about a regulation that has been in development indeed in the Netherlands, or in Europe actually, about making the producer of software responsible for notifying end consumers about potential risks of an update of the software. And I can imagine in a sort of close environment of Apple, for example, that is sort of doable because you know how many combinations you have. But, we just talked about door locks. I don't know, there's probably a vast majority of a multitude of that. From your perspective, do you think it's possible to, first of all, identify all those combinations and then also assess the impact of an update of software?
I think that's one of the challenges Microsoft also has with Windows operating system. We have a magnitude of different computer combinations or environment combinations. What we believe from a Siemens point of view is really that you must put the software you are building, let's say, maybe it's a flash PROM, maybe it's really just a controller software that you put into a context as we call it engineering and manufacturing BOM, bill of material. And with that you control kind of the environment, you control kind of the variations of your products. And that is what you can guarantee and what you will hand over later on to your customers, where you say, okay, for this, during the lifetime, you get, let's say, 5 years, 10 years, depending on the worth, most likely, of the product, maybe 15 years. Really looking forward to my car, what this is doing then in 15 years. And that for that time, you get then a warranty, you get updates, and here again, thanks to Sigrid, we get the vulnerability updates, which you can feed back. But of course, it will not be possible for each and every combination. No. I think that's so. You have to limit the variation, and we see also first car manufacturers really slimming down the variety of modules, and that is one of the results. I think.
Yeah, because otherwise the lifetime of your product goes down, and that's
right.
A whole other discussion about sustainability, of course. Yeah. I want to thank you for now very much for your presentation, and already have